bit, and I'm happy to take over again at this stage to introduce the panels. I will just briefly share a few slides with a few messages that I would like to share with all of you, and then give the floor to our distinguished guests and speakers with whom I would like to discuss really some crucial questions in this huge topic of a shift towards a green transition, an ecosystem ready to boost the business resilience. So it's obvious that this is really that this is really a huge topic, big issues over here. So what can I tell you about this? Well, I could talk a lot about different projects in which I have participated, which I have led also during the last years, with a focus on innovation, transformation, green transition, and so on and so forth. Also activities in different USALP action groups. But what I would like to do is to actually summarize all of this into two fields, into two broad topics that I think are really lessons that we have learned over the last years, topics, issues that we should focus on if we would like to have a real impact in moving towards green transition. And the first of these two big topics is really the business perspective. You know, I'm an economist. My students hear all the time that economic value is created at the business level, that if we want to have an impact in terms of economic policy, we need to work in a way that has an impact on economic actors through incentives for economic actors. And the same is, of course, also true for transition, transformation, green transition and green transformation. The Councillor Marcato has put it very well a few minutes ago. If we want to be serious about green transition, we should come away of actually looking at this only from a point of view of ideology, let's say, but we need to combine ecological transition with value creation at the business level. So this question of combining ecological transition with valuable solutions at the business level, and taking the business perspective into account if we want to have an impact with green transition, this is really something that we have learned over the last years to be extremely crucial. Here, just a few examples. This is from a recent project that we did within the Interreg Alpine Space program called Alplink BioEco, where we were working in 15 regions of the Alpine Space to actually open up new innovative bio-based value chains and working directly with businesses. So the impact that we created was really at the business levels, with businesses starting to develop new bio-based materials, looking for new solutions of buy streams of, for example, their grape production, and so on and so forth. So to get to this concrete level, really important to take the business perspective into account and to think about how businesses can be better supported to become these crucial actors that we need them to be if we want to have an impact in green transition at the European level. The second lesson that I would like to share could somehow be summarized by size matters. We're all small regions. We all like regional perspectives. I'm Swiss, so we have a very strong regional perspective that is very important for our cantons, our subsidiarity levels that we really put forward and focused on. But we all know at the same time that if we try to achieve something on our own, we will fail, and that we need to work together. So size matters. And here again, a picture, and you have probably, if you have heard me talk about something, already seen this. This is the Finsteraarhorn at more than 4,000 meters above sea level in the middle of the Bernese Alps. It is, as you might know, not the highest mountain of Europe. It is not even the highest mountain of Switzerland nowadays. It used to be the highest mountain, the highest peak of Switzerland before the end of the Napoleonic era. not because Napoleon raised our mountains, of course, but because the region where the higher mountains, the higher summits now stand has never been part of the old Confederacy. So it used to be our highest mountain in Switzerland, this Finsteraarhorn, but this is not the reason why I want to show it here for size matters. But there's another thing about this mountain that is very symbolic for me, actually. It is that it is one of the only summits on the main Alpine range that you can see both from the north and from the south quite far away. So if you go up to the tower of the Cathedral of Strasbourg, which is now also part of USALP, so really to the north of our macro-regional area, Cathedral of Strasbourg, you can see the summit of Finsteraarhorn. If you go south to the Duomo di Milano, climb up to the tower, you can also see this summit. So it really stands for cross-border cooperation for our macro-regional region. And yeah, most of you have probably heard me talk about this. So I would actually really like to see this mountain be part of the new USALP logo in the future. Symbolic for the need to work together across regions. Alone, we are too small. And if we want to have an impact in issues as complex as green transition, there is absolutely no way around working together across borders. All of this has been discussed during the last 3 years in this BE-READI Alps project, as Maria Sole has already highlighted. So we had a whole series of policy tables organized throughout the project, an ongoing policy dialogue in which we also had as an output some input and output papers, a white paper, and as I said, a series of policy tables where we try to discuss the most important issues. We have been talking about digitalization, what opportunities we can offer to businesses for green transition through digitalization. We have been talking about access to finance. We have had a dedicated session also on cross-regional cooperation. The way and the framework in which we tried to tackle all of these issues in a policy dialogue was to ask the following questions. Where do we stand at the moment? What is the status quo? What are the challenges that we have? And what are potential solutions in terms of policy interventions to actually take a step forward? And the way in which I would like to frame this morning's continuation and the discussion with all our distinguished speakers and guests here in this debate is exactly this, with a focus on these two broad and big and important topics: the business perspective and cross-border cooperation. What is already in place? What is the status quo? What is not working? What are the challenges? And what are innovative new solutions, ideas for policy interventions to actually take a step forward, to allow businesses to become the actors of green change and to allow our regions to work better together across borders. So this is a bit the framework of this morning's discussion and the topics that I would like to discuss with our speakers. That will be organized in 2 panels according to these 2 big topics. So first we will have a discussion on the business and the ecosystem perspective with 3 speakers. It's Dr. Birgit Weihs-Dopfer, who is a cluster manager for renewable energies in Tirol for the Standortagentur Tirol. We also have Mr. Bernhard Koelmel, who is professor for global process management at the School of Engineering at Pforzheim University. Mr. Koelmel is also representing Baden-Württemberg Connect, which was a project partner in the BE-READI Alps project and also in other very relevant Interreg projects on circular economy solutions with a very strong business perspective. And finally, on this first panel, we will have Dr. Anna Giorgi, who is the director of Unimont University of Milano and represents the USALP Action Group 1 on research and innovation as its leader, with all the expertise that comes with this on how the research and innovation ecosystem can actually support this business perspective and the role of business in green transition. So we will have this first panel. We will then in the middle have a block with a few keynote addresses. I will introduce you to the keynote speakers after the first panel. We will have probably, let's see how we organize that, also a third keynote speaker, Mr. Bizesti, who could not participate before. So there will be 3 keynote speeches in between, and we will then conclude with the second panel on the second big block of topics on cooperation actions and the need for cross-regional cooperation, with again 3 speakers. Miss Sylvia Jost, the head of international affairs of the Swiss Federal Office for Special Development, can unfortunately not participate this morning, again also due to the COVID pandemic and related situation at her work. But we will have 3 speakers also for the second panel, which I will introduce to you in due time. So much for the agenda for this morning, and enough from my side. I would say that the floor is now really for the panels. I would like to see what our guests bring to the table. I'm sure that you have plenty of ideas about solutions for the future, about the status quo, about challenges, and about how to tackle these in the future. So we will start the discussion with our first panel with Ms. Weihs-Dopfer, Mr. Professor Koelmel, and with Ms. Anna Giorgi. So I kindly ask the speakers to switch on your cameras. I can see that you're all here, which is very nice. Welcome to the 3 of you. I propose to start with you, Ms. Weihs-Dopfer, and then in second position give the floor to Mr. Koelmel, and close the first round with Anna Giorgi, if this is right, if this is fine with you. So Ms. Weihs-Dopfer, as I said, you're a co-cluster manager of the renewable energy cluster in Standortagentur Tirol in Austria. You're also an expert in Green Deal. You're helping your businesses to actually cope with the Green Deal issues. This is exactly what we want to discuss here. So as a cluster manager, I would really be interested to learn from you how your members, your companies, which are the actors who will in the end really have to turn the Green Deal into practice, how can we better support them in their green transition in the future? Please, Ms. Weihs-Dopfer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Keller, for the kind introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. A very good morning to everyone. May I first say it is always motivating to hear ambition and plans and different perspectives when it comes to that huge endeavor of the green transition. It was really a nice morning already. I, on my part, would like to say a few words about the company I work for, the Standortagentur Tirol, and then show some best practices which best show how we try to foster that green transition in Tirol. The Standortagentur Tirol has been tasked with strengthening Tirol and keep it competitive as a business and science location, and to facilitate sustainable growth. And it does so by fostering innovation, research, and cooperation through a wide range of services, and to support companies and municipalities as well as regions in their efforts relating to challenges and opportunities that come up, depending on how you look at it, challenge or opportunity, such as digitalization, new work concepts, or circular economy. There's a lot. And some services include a welcome service for international businesses and employees, or a consultancy on national as well as on European funding. The Standortagentur is a partner of the Enterprise Europe network, or a sustainability check as a first assessment for a company when considering addressing sustainability for the first time. And another service are the 7 clusters of the Standortagentur Tirol. They provide a network of companies, research institutes, and some interest groups in the fields of IT, mechatronics, wellness, life sciences, creative industries, hydrogen, and renewable energies, respectively. And those clusters serve as hubs for innovation and cooperation, and we bring together people and their ideas, we initiate projects, we foster networking and know-how transfer. And yes, 7 clusters seems a lot, and it is, but we think that that broad range of business sectors works now to our advantage, especially when it comes to complex issues such as the green transition. And by all those cluster managers working together with their knowledge and their knowledge of their fields in a close-knit team, and by exchanging the information and the ideas on a regular basis every 2 weeks, and more often if needed, we can better address those complex issues. And it does need a broader approach. And I would like to present now a few projects. In 2021, the state government of Tyrol passed the new sustainability and climate strategy to facilitate this development of a sustainable and climate neutral economy and society. And one of the immediate measures taken was the establishment of a new platform. And that platform's name is Climate Energy Circular Economy. And the idea of that platform was to strengthen the cooperation and to streamline the services, the existing services of the 3 key public organizations in Tyrol that are actually the main players when it comes to supporting companies in the community. And the platform is now working on a customer journey right now to make their services, their several services, more transparent and more accessible, which is important, as well as on cross-organizational services, which is new. And the platform also initiates projects and serves as a first point of contact. A project started last year deals with corporate carbon footprints, including scope 3 emissions, so quite ambitious. And the idea is right now to support 10 companies on their path to climate neutrality as trailblazers for other companies in Tyrol. And based on the lessons learned in that project, we want to put together a comprehensive guideline for dissemination purposes, and that is supposed to reduce barriers and to motivate companies to follow in those footsteps of maybe even their competitors. The initiative came actually from a Tyrolean high-tech company that builds and implements climate positive wood-fired power plants worldwide. And in their self-conception, they strive to and they see themselves as a climate pioneer. Therefore, they felt it essential to know about their own carbon footprint. And then in a joint effort, the idea quickly turned into reality. Several companies from different sectors were invited to join the initiatives. Networking took place, for example, with the business initiative Sustainable Styria. And as a starting point on that path to climate neutrality, all companies have been working on their carbon balance for a quantification of their greenhouse gas emissions. And those first results will come in the first half of 2022. The trickiest part, obviously, are scope 3 emissions, but they are important. The next steps are avoiding, reducing, and, well, if necessary, offsetting, though offsetting is not a really desirable option, though sometimes can't be avoided. And those carbon balance quality, as well as the quality of the reducing and offsetting measures, will be validated. Though the project is not finished yet, we have already learned some lessons, and a main one is a simple one, that we don't have enough consultants in Tyrol who can do this. And that is an important lesson. So we have to set up a training program and have to have the consultants to help companies to achieve those goals. A second project I actually had or have the lead in is the project Clean Alpine region. That is, I think, especially interesting for the region that have a lot of tourism. It addresses sustainable development of tourism destinations. As you probably know, Tyrol is central economic sector is tourism. It therefore plays a key role when we think about climate protection and sustainability efforts in our region, and vice versa, which is important. Ecological measures here have a direct economic impact on the sector, on tourism. The ecological measures ensure that intact environment, the healthy ecosystems on which those offers are based. They help reduce adaptation costs, they increase innovation potential, and last but not least, the market and consumers are changing fast and are demanding those sustainable offers. So that sustainability plays a really crucial role now in keeping our tourism region competitive. It still needs that push and that pilot project to get things going better or in a better way. And in this project, 6 destinations have been implementing measures. There was a project core team working together with the region on a monthly basis. We had a clear dialogue dedicated to certain topics. There were expert inputs, but I think the most important point of all that was that trust that has been built up between the regions. So nowadays they work together way differently than they used to just a year ago. Their working relationship has been awesome. And not only that, but also that working relationship between us organizations or the state administration, which was part of the project and part of the core team, has been bettered, and the cooperation works so much more smoothly for it. And even now in spring last year, the Austrian Ministry for Climate Action, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology, it's a long name, decided to expand their Umweltzeichen certification family with a new Umweltzeichen for destinations, a certificate that really needs a lot of work and it's not easy to come by. Our region were pilot regions in the process of developing that certification, and now, because of their trust and because they have worked together for over a year now, they decided to do it together. And I'm really proud to say now the guidelines that came out in January, that they employed 2 persons in a joint effort, they paid them together. And these 2 are now tasked with supporting all of the 6 regions on their path to certify for the Umweltzeichen. And the role of all of them is to achieve that Umweltzeichen by December this year. So I think working together and building trust was one of the key things here. That's for me. Thank you very much. And I would like to give back the floor to you, Professor Keller.
Thank you very much, Dr. Weihs-Dopfer, for this interesting perspective from Tyrol. I would already have a lot of questions for you. We'll see if we have enough time in the end. But first, I will give the floor now to the second input for this panel discussion. We will move a little bit away from Tyrol, direction westwards to Baden-Württemberg with Professor Bernhard Koelmel. And I see that you already share your screen. That's fantastic, because you come here with some numbers, and I love this as an economist. So you're a professor global process management, but you also represent the project Circular 4.0, and circular economy is, of course, a fantastic example for how the business perspective that I mentioned before is actually complementary, has to be complementary with green transition. So I'm really looking forward to see what you can share from your experiences from this project. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thanks a lot from my side, and welcome to everybody to this quite interesting interaction on the topic of the green transition. In my capacity as scientific director of an independent research organization within this group of organizations where Baden-Württemberg Connected belongs to. I'm the scientific director of a research entity which concentrates on the intersection of digitization and the future Green Deal. So, and that's the reason why I participated in the Circular 4.0 project. And today I will concentrate on just a few results out of this project. We had some quite good and deep interaction with some 25 companies in the Black Forest region. The Black Forest region is quite interesting with a lot of hidden champions, but none of the big companies. Yeah, the big companies like Daimler, Bosch, Porsche, and so on, in the region of Stuttgart. Some of the IT companies are in the region of Karlsruhe, of our federal region. However, the Black Forest has some excellent companies, good industrial knowledge. However, the companies tend to be smaller. Tend to be smaller means up to 5,000 employees. Yeah, the overall structure is still that 90% of the companies have less than 250 employees. Within this context, we contacted some 40 companies. 25 companies agreed to interact with us, and we went to them and discussed with them their circular economy, green transition approaches, and their digital maturity. This was based on 2 meetings, one in the beginning where we discussed the circumstances, the potential benefits, what could be done. Then we distributed a questionnaire, which was completed by them, and after some company-specific analysis, some guidelines we gave to them, we went again to them in order to assess what they have done or what they plan in the future. So we tried to summarize a kind of analysis of the needs of the companies in order to go ahead in the future. And we developed very company-specific sustainabilities and discussed follow-up interactions with respect to future activities. And quite interesting here in the first illustration is that the circular maturity is really well correlated to the digital maturity. So this is a kind of statement, and you can see the bandwidth of circular maturity. We would say that around 40 or 30, they start to be okay or good. The left-hand side is ones are not so good. Still, what is interesting is that we have a complete bandwidth. The more traditional companies are lagging behind, but basically the companies are all more or less interested in this green transition activities. I'd like to give you a short summary of let's say somehow aggregated results. And overall, there's a large and growing interest in going green. Yeah. So there was not one company which told us we are not at all interested. Very often, and this is the business perspective, the economic pressure is stronger than the green intentions. So quite often the companies tell us or told us, yeah, we would like to do more. However, we fear to have a negative impact on our competitiveness. And based on this, we go rather slowly. Also, quite interesting is the fact that greenwashing is practiced virtually by every company. Yeah, this sounds somehow negative because all external stakeholders attach real importance to it. Yeah, so the employees want to work in a company which is somehow green. The public interest is looking at it very carefully. The politicians are looking at it carefully. The suppliers or the customers want to have it there. And so this was one really important result of the direct interactions. The motto here is fake it until you make it. Yeah, fake that you are green. All of them started at least some initiatives to go in this direction. However, I would say 60 to 70% of the green activities are more or less greenwashing. Overall, there's a great deal of uncertainty, and the smaller the companies are, the more uncertain they are how to go ahead, what is relevant, what will be mandatory, what needs to be done. So especially in the times of crisis in the last 2 years, these companies put more effort on the task to survive than in their direction towards a green future. What is also interesting, the topic has arrived in the strategic boards of the companies, but the strategic goals have not been fully broken down into operational activities. So yeah, it's discussed already, yeah, and already also partially discussed in the vision and mission of the companies. However, it's not fully operationalized. Yeah, so the concrete steps are quite often very vague on their activities. So far, bottom-up activities dominate, as these activities serve quite well as showcases to the outside world or legal regulations are implemented. This means it has not been, they have not yet a complete green analysis or green potential of their company so that they can derive the best and most meaningful actions in order to achieve the best results. They start with projects which look like nice to the outside. That's a reason why we also call it greenwashing. And these projects are implemented, and then they are proudly presented to the outside world. For all of them, it's quite clear that new legal requirements will be issued in the foreseeable future. And but they are not so negative about this, because they say it's a basis for either economic advantages, because they can go faster than their competitors. And if these legal requirements are relevant all over Europe, they say they don't fear disadvantages from the green commitment. New technological-based topics like the digital product pass, which is now implemented in the law for the battery recycling domain, are seen as sensible and promising approaches, and they expect that it will come to, let's say, more or less all products and services which are either energy intensive or resource intensive. But they are looking forward to it because they think if they are technologically good, we have, based on this, a competitive advantage. Now coming back to this correlation between digital maturity and the circular maturity, we tried to discuss it, and we came to the conclusion that this is due to the fact that the companies which are digital mature already have mechanisms in place in order to implement strategic intentions. You know, they started some 6, 7, 8 years ago with a digital transformation, and now they have a knowledge and approaches to translate strategic ideas into concrete activities. And the companies which are lagging behind in this digital maturity have no strategic knowledge, or have no knowledge how to come from strategic ideas to concrete actions. That's the reason why we say it's quite important for these companies to generate best practices where they can learn from, or with a breaking down of strategic green goals into operational opportunities for action. Thanks a lot. That's it from my side. I'm happy later on to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koelmel. Very interesting, these results. My enthusiasm about bridging the gap between business and ecological objectives has been broken down a little bit with seeing the results, to see that actually we're not always there yet. If we have so many companies that still feel the problem actually to bring these things together between competitiveness and going green. So this is certainly a topic that I would like to discuss also with the other panelists later on. How can we actually move further on this? And then also the point about greenwashing, extremely interesting inputs for the rest of the discussion. But before before we go into this discussion with the other panelists, let me introduce to you our third speaker with her input. It's Professor Anna Giorgi from the University of Milan. She is directing the Research Center for Sustainable Management and Enhancement of Mountain Areas at Unimont, University of Milan, and she's also the leader of USALP Action Group 1 on research and innovation. Now, we all know that within research and innovation, one of the big actions to take for the future is to actually bring businesses closer to research and innovation and allow businesses to work with research institutions in the development of new green solutions. So you, as a representative of this research ecosystem, Anna, I would really be interested in knowing what your idea and learning what your ideas would be to better support businesses in their green transition through interaction with the research and innovation ecosystem in the future. Please, Anna, the floor is yours for a short input.
Hi, Michael. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the organization of this very interesting meeting. Now I will switch in Italian, considering that the majority of the participants are Italians, and that maybe this discontinuity will facilitate the attention. So, come Michael ha ben introdotto, sono il leader del gruppo di azione 1 della strategia macroregionale alpina, gruppo di azione che ha l'obiettivo di promuovere la creazione di un ecosistema della ricerca e dell'innovazione nella regione alpina che sia efficace. Una sfida, come dire, rilevante su una piattaforma territoriale ben delimitata che è quella della regione alpina, quindi con dei limiti ben definiti, e questo sicuramente facilita l'innesco di un processo di questo genere, tutt'altro che banale, perché creare un ecosistema della ricerca e dell'innovazione significa creare quell'interazione così preziosa, come è emerso da tutte le relazioni che mi hanno preceduta, da tutti gli interventi che mi hanno preceduta, l'interazione tra il mondo della ricerca, il mondo del business, dell'economia, dell'impresa, ma aggiungiamo il mondo della governance e la società civile. Questi sono gli ingredienti, come dire, essenziali, sono gli attori essenziali dell'ecosistema dell'innovazione, poiché da un dialogo continuativo tra questi soggetti emergono le priorità sulle quali è rilevante unire le forze per rendere più competitivo un paese, un'area territoriale. Da questo dialogo emergono le criticità che riguardano la società intera e il mondo dell'economia, il business. E è evidente, arrivando appunto nella nostra piattaforma territoriale, quella della regione alpina, ma in generale, anche questa è una tematica, come dire, centrale ormai a livello globale, la green transition. Allora, noi dobbiamo promuovere questo processo di evoluzione, di transizione verde, perché questo significa andare verso la sostenibilità dei processi, delle attività umane sostanzialmente, che è ormai un prerequisito imprescindibile per estremizzo, ma a ragion veduta, per la sopravvivenza della nostra specie su questo pianeta. Abbiamo capito che non possiamo utilizzare in maniera assolutamente indiscriminata le risorse della natura, consumandole, deteriorando il pianeta, l'ambiente, le risorse dalle quali dipendiamo poi come esseri viventi, senza poi pagarne un prezzo altissimo. Quindi la sostenibilità, che come sappiamo bene si sviluppa sui 3 assi principali, quella ambientale, quella economica e quella sociale, deve essere, come dire, il driver delle azioni umane per il futuro. Bene, questa cosa non è facile assolutamente, e lo abbiamo ben compreso anche dalla interessantissima ricerca che è stata presentata dalla collega professor Koelmel che mi ha preceduta. Insomma, le aziende vorrebbero, non c'è una preclusione, no? Nei confronti di un processo che porta beneficio a tutti. Il problema è come. Allora, il come presuppone una forte interazione tra chi è in grado di elaborare delle possibili soluzioni innovative in termini di metodi e di strumenti che possono facilitare il cambiamento nella produzione e nei servizi in modo più sostenibile. Quindi il dialogo tra i soggetti che ho citato all'inizio e che sono i rappresentanti dell'ecosistema della ricerca e dell'innovazione. Come gruppo di azione 1, che coinvolge 22 membri dai 6 su 7 stati alpini, ciò che abbiamo fatto in questi anni di lavoro congiunto è stato cercare di capire quali fossero gli argomenti centrali di interesse comune, perché nella regione alpina è evidente, noi dobbiamo unire le forze su obiettivi, su target di interesse comune per i quali, lavorando insieme, si possono ottenere risultati molto più importanti, molto più impattanti che non a seguito di un lavoro come dire, svolto da ciascuno nel proprio ambito territoriale. E allora nella regione alpina ciò che noi troviamo come filo conduttore e che rende la regione alpina una piattaforma davvero interessante da un punto di vista anche della sperimentazione di innovazione verso la sostenibilità, è che si tratta di un territorio molto ricco, molto vivace, economicamente molto forte, che è caratterizzato però da 2 ambiti territoriali a 2 differenti velocità, perché abbiamo le grandi città per lo più nelle pianure, che sono estremamente industrializzate, quindi impattanti e anche, come dire, capaci di creare valore in maniera significativa, cosa che rende questa regione un motore, una locomotiva a livello europeo. Ma abbiamo anche le Alpi, le montagne, i territori verticali che hanno, come dire, uno scarto di velocità di crescita e di competitività indubbio rispetto alle pianure e alle grandi città. E allora la sfida, che ha molto a che fare con la sostenibilità, è ridurre il gap, creando metodi, strumenti atti a raccordare le velocità, a far sì che le velocità di azione e di capacità di produzione di valore di questi 2 ambiti territoriali vengano parificate con modelli di sviluppo differenti, quindi nuovi modelli di business, iniziative che vadano a porre l'attenzione su quelle che sono diciamo, gli ambiti che possono facilitare questo tipo di processo. Sono già stati citati la possibilità di facilitare la connessione, quindi ridurre le distanze oggi possibile con i processi di digitalizzazione, quindi i metodi e gli strumenti che consentono di promuovere la digitalizzazione nelle imprese e nella società in generale, perché attraverso strumenti digitali è possibile erogare anche come dire, attività educativa, che è l'altro asset strategico. Innovazione ed educazione sono i 2 pilastri su cui deve essere costruita la società del futuro, perché l'uomo possa, come dire, vivere su questo pianeta esercitando il suo ruolo, che è quello di custode di un mondo che può dare tantissimo, ma deve essere maneggiato con i giusti livelli di conoscenza e di consapevolezza che derivano appunto da un puntuale lavoro di acquisizione di nuova conoscenza e di confronto e di disseminazione di questa nuova conoscenza. Quindi una partita davvero assolutamente, come dire, stimolante e di futuro, che noi giochiamo su una piattaforma territoriale ben delimitata, ma che per le caratteristiche che possiede può essere davvero un eccezionale laboratorio. Ed è questa la finalità con cui il gruppo di azione 1 opera. Ora stiamo promuovendo un'interazione tra la creazione di una sorta di network tra università della regione alpina, con l'intento di attrarre l'attenzione del mondo accademico, del mondo della ricerca della regione alpina sulle priorità relative a questa regione, che sono appunto, come dicevo, i processi di digitalizzazione, quindi di riduzione della distanza tra i soggetti operativi, la creazione di nuove opportunità di lavoro che siano legate alla bioeconomia, considerata la ricchezza di risorse naturali di questa regione, così come il tema energetico che è stato citato. Le montagne insomma sono verticali e la verticalità è una delle chiavi come dire, essenziali per la produzione di una delle forme di energia sostenibile come l'energia idroelettrica. E quindi produzione di energia idroelettrica, modalità di gestione dell'energia, non solo l'idroelettrica, tutte le rinnovabili, è un altro asset strategico per questo territorio.
Grazie mille, Anna, molto interessante. Fantastic, all these inputs. Let's get to the core of it, actually. And this is. Oh, sorry, I have the Italian translation in my ear. That's not helping. Yeah, let's get to the core of it. And the core for me is really this, what I mentioned before after Mr. Professor Koelmel's input. The three of you agree that companies need to and are willing to go green somehow, and that the framework conditions seem to be positive and in place for this. But at the same time, we hear that for many companies, it is still a problem because they know that they will lose, at least in the short time, competitiveness if they take certain actions. So what do we do with that? If we know that they need to go green, we know that this is the priority of our macro region, but we know that the actors that can actually have an impact on this are reluctant to do so because they cannot afford to lose competitiveness. We seem to be stuck. What can we do about this? So maybe first to you, Mr. Koelmel, because you have presented these results, but then I would also like the others to comment on this.
Yep. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, it's not so easy to answer it. And, you know, probably each and every company has to take own decisions. There are different, from my point of view, there are different approaches which need to be taken. First of all, there should be a joint and harmonized European legislation. Yeah. If all companies face the same challenges, they have a good or they have a real need to go ahead. This legislation should be somehow applied also to the competitors, mainly from Asia, because quite often the competition is not within Europe. There's more or less by now very often collaboration because we have a shortage on skilled labor force already. But the competition is with Asia, and if they don't need to take care about cost intensive regulations, we have here a real problem, and legislation could help here definitely. On the other side, you know, I had very detailed and direct interaction often with CEOs or the head of innovation management. The smaller companies don't have yet a responsible person for the green transition. Yeah, it's most often either with the CEO or with the guy who's guy or woman which is responsible for digital transformation or innovation. Yeah, and what would help them would be real best practice, and not with best practice in terms of projects and description of projects, but best practice of methodologies where a strategic direction, we help them to identify a strategic direction, and B, break this strategy down into actionable activities on an operational level. And if we have this, I'm quite sure 70% of the companies which I talk to would be willing to go ahead.
Mm. Yeah, sounds very interesting. I would like to give the question also to you, Ms. Weihs-Dopfer, because we have been talking about also bilaterally about the fact that you also, in your experience, have heard from companies that they still consider this green transition to be expensive, to have as a consequence less quality of life, that this is really something that is difficult to achieve at the business level. So what is your perspective on that? What can we do to overcome this problem?
There are several things I think we can and we should do. And what Mr. Koelmel just said about European legislation, he's absolutely right. And right now it's mainly the really big companies that had to adapt because of the European trading scheme, which doesn't affect the small companies. And in Tirol, we have a lot of very small companies. And about the European trading scheme, of course, it is high time that the European Green Deal passes. So we have CBAM. So we have those Asian companies also have to pay for their emissions. So that is really, really important. But for the smaller companies who are not part of that scheme and probably and won't be for a while, their questions is mainly does it affect me? I mean, they don't see it directly, right, around them. It only has started that it affects Europe. We have to be honest about that before it just affected the South, and who cared about the South? And do I really have to do this now? Same question as Mr. Koelmel said, it's the same thing. Is my impact really that big? I'm a small company, I have 2 employees. Why should I do it? And one of the main issues is the complexity of the problem that we have to tackle. So companies stand in front of that and they feel like, where do I start? How do I start? Whom do I ask for help? Where do I get support? And that is something we can do and we have to do, to give them that support, to start with easy things, with easy first steps where we can put them in the position to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to start working for themselves and get enthusiastic about it and see that this is really working and it is a good thing. And I do think one of the main issues we have is communication. So far, climate communication was about polar bears. Again, who cares about polar bears besides the altruistic people? It has to affect them personally. And we have to make sure, especially us in the energy and sustainability bubble, to not overwhelm people. Because when I can quote something, research shows that showing people research does not work. It doesn't. So we have to do that differently and better. And we have to make them aware that this is a huge business opportunity and that they have to stop seeing sustainability as an add-on, but to have to start managing sustainable, because then it becomes a huge business opportunity. New business models emerge and the way they do business will change for the better, and financial gain will be at the end of that story, I think.
Thanks. Very interesting. Anna, do you also have an opinion on this? You're muted.
Yes, okay. Of course. Sì, io penso che anche qui esista uno scarto, un gap tra la capacità di innovare da un punto di vista tecnologico nella nostra società che cresce in modo esponenziale. Quindi noi stiamo acquisendo via via sempre più conoscenza e l'applicazione di questa conoscenza sta portando nel breve tempo all'individuazione di nuovi strumenti, nuovi metodi che la comunità scientifica è in grado di produrre. Il gap però sta con l'innovazione del framework politico-sociale, che non è altrettanto rapido. Quindi esiste, come dire, proprio anche qui uno scarto pericoloso, perché questo fa sì che gli strumenti e i metodi innovativi elaborati non vengano magari testati o applicati in maniera efficace, non vengano resi disponibili alle imprese, al mondo operativo, con la rapidità necessaria per far percepire loro la possibilità di cambiare verso una maggiore sostenibilità dell'azione umana nell'impresa, ma nella vita, perché è qualcosa che riguarda anche lo stile di vita, naturalmente, di ciascuno di noi. Quindi ciò che è importante, strategico, centrale oggi nel terzo millennio è che cambi il framework anche politico e sociale nei confronti della necessità di acquisire un altro passo e un'altra direzione verso la sostenibilità. Faccio un solo esempio e poi chiudo. Di fronte al dramma della guerra che stiamo vivendo in Europa, insomma, vicino a casa, la reazione qual è stata? E al rischio del disastro nucleare che viene evocato ogni giorno, la reazione del mondo politico qual è stata? Riarmiamoci. Non è stata moratoria contro le armi e investiamo i soldi nella ricerca, nell'innovazione e nell'educazione che consentiranno, che sono le chiavi per consentire all'uomo di vivere su questo pianeta in pace e con, come dire, e con tutto quello che serve per recuperare quel ruolo che l'uomo ha, a cui mi riferivo all'inizio. Utopia, mi rendo conto, perché oggi, come dire, è difficile, no? Con gli input che abbiamo, portare il baricentro della discussione in questa direzione, ma è l'unica possibile.
Thank you, Anna. This is a super interesting point again, also when you mentioned that what is really needed is to deploy the scientific knowledge and bring that knowledge also to the SMEs and to our economic actors. And this gets back a little bit to what Ms. Weihs-Dopfer said before, to have these support mechanisms in place to show the companies what is actually possible. But speaking about this, I would like to come back to something that you have said before, Ms. Weihs-Dopfer. You mentioned that one of your big problems is that even though you can show certain things that are possible, you actually don't have enough consultants. So isn't there a problem if we say that at the same time opportunities are out there? We only need to show them, we only need to communicate better. There should be a huge market for people who can consult on these things. People should be paid very good salaries to do this. Why is there no market for this? Why do you have a problem to find consultants to actually do this?
I mean, there is a market for it now. And actually, of course, we all have known it for a long time that this market will come. But to be honest, only 5 years ago, like energy transition and sustainability and those topics were still something like, yeah, we have to do it at some point, but just hold your horses. Right now we are doing business. Like this attitude still. And right now I see a lot of jobs out there for sustainability consultants, sustainability officers, all that kind of jobs. We do not right now we do not have the people to fill all those jobs, but we will. And we have to set up qualifications together with the universities to have those people. And when I talk about the consultant, it's mainly about when you go in detail into balancing emissions, you have to have top people for that, to do that. It's not that easy. And companies need that when they really want to have an emission balance, of course.
Sounds good and promising for the future. Now, the critics would certainly say that, okay, then companies start to hire all these sustainability consultants and so forth and so on and so forth. But what they will do with that is nothing else but greenwashing, Mr. Koelmel. Before you have showed the numbers, 60 to 70% of the activities that you have studied could be considered just greenwashing. Is this a problem, or?
Well, I would just give a short feedback from my point of view on the number of consultants and the activities.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it's the same all over Europe. However, we saw in the last 2 years a sharp drop in the number of new students which have a technological intention. And also in the domain of we have our own study program on sustainability engineering, sustainability management, and the number of students dropped from 100 to 55 in the last year. So this is a big issue, and it's dropped everywhere. Mechanical engineering dropped even more. Yeah, so. I'm not so sure if we get enough persons to work in this domain. Just my feedback, and here I see the biggest challenge for all European companies, to have enough skilled workforce for the future. The greenwashing, with respect to your question, greenwashing, I think I like it. Because with the help of greenwashing, the companies put a kind of marketing sign outside the company. And, initially or in the beginning, they are successful in doing greenwashing theater, and telling the public we are really going green. But in the long term, since they have this marketing sign outside, they will be taken for the word. And from my point of view, I really like greenwashing better than doing nothing, because based on this, the companies put themselves in a position they need to become active.
Thank you so much. So this is what I really like about these panel discussions, to get into a discussion like this with certain ideas about concept like greenwashing, for example, and then coming out with a new perspective on this. And I think that's certainly very interesting for all our participants. Unfortunately, we will have to close this first panel now. I really would like to thank the three of you for your extremely interesting inputs and for the discussions. And I hope to have the opportunity also in the future to continue on some of these topics to discuss with you. So thank you very much, Professor Koelmel, Dr. Weihs-Dopfer, and Professor Giorgi for your inputs. Thanks to the speakers of this first panel. And with